on qualitative research and what we do. So I'd like to start by just talking about a personal fitness story, a tragedy actually. Last year I signed on for a gym membership. It was a really fancy gym near my house, and I was really motivated to get fit. And I've had this niggling feeling that I'm not getting enough exercise, I'm likely to put on weight if I'm not careful, traveling too much, working long hours, all of that. Fitness is really important. So there's this really fabulous gym near my house, and I said, okay, well, it's time to sort of take action. In the whole year, I have actually been there 3 times. I was really motivated when I joined, and I said, okay, and I visualized myself looking all slim and sexy and all of that. But 3 times. Now it's not that I'm not motivated, it's not that I'm not excited by that possibility, but there is something that is preventing me from going to the gym. I just don't go. And it wasn't always like this. There was a time, which was, a few years ago, where I worked in a different company, a different job, and I had a colleague who used to go to the gym with me. And every evening at 6:30, he would turn up at my desk and say, it's time to go. The gym was right next door to the office. And somehow it seemed much easier to go in those days. It was part of the routine. There was this trigger every evening, 6:30, friends are going, I'll go along. Much easier to go. But now, it just seems to be really hard, despite the huge amount of money that I'm spending on the gym. So that sort of, is very similar to a lot of the challenges that we face in the marketing world today, which is really the challenge of changing habits. There is a lot of habitual behavior that is at play out there, which goes beyond what we need and want, what our stated desires are, what our unstated desires are. And people don't act in accordance with what they want all the time. There's a lot of habitual stuff that gets in the way. So whether it's about changing habits, whether it's about creating new habits, whether it is about reinforcing existing habits, if you're a market leader and you want people to go on buying the brand that they do, it is actually, habitual behavior is something that people struggle with. It is something that people have found hard to understand and really unravel. Now, we all understand instinctively that our motivations, our needs, our stated behavioral intentions don't always translate into real decisions, real choices, actual behavior. And the gym story is just one example of that. And it's not just about behavior that is hard to do and there are other forces acting on us. Very often convenience comes in the way. So if I love Coke as a brand, it's my favorite brand of soft drinks. But if I'm sitting in the office and there's Pepsi available in the cafe, chances are that I'll go and have the Pepsi rather than cross the road and go to the store across the street to buy myself a Coke. Because convenience, it is easy enough, and it's sort of the choice that I'm making is good enough. So what is it that really translates motivations and needs into actual choices and actual behavior? And where is that gap between what we are calling behavior and choices and habits versus behavior, versus motivations? Now, typically we focus on the left side of that equation. As qualitative researchers in particular, we've been known to dig into that emotional territory. Yeah. Could you just circulate this one? Yeah. So we've been known to actually focus on the left side of the things. Understanding emotions, understanding people's needs, deep-seated motivations, and irrespective of what the marketing challenges, what the business question is, whether we're developing new markets, whether we're trying to grow existing brands, fighting competition or defending against new competition, the instinct is to sort of understand, the first instinct is to understand what people want. And I'll be talking about, I want to understand what people dream about, what their real motivations are, what are those deep-seated needs, how do I unearth them? And that's been the stuff of qualitative research for a really long time. That's the heartland of what we think we do well. And we've developed our techniques around that whole territory. And it's not to say that that's not important. Of course it is. That's certainly a huge part of the challenge. But the right side has actually been neglected, which is the area of behavior, the area of actually how do you shape people's choices, how do you change their habits, what's going on there underneath that, which will really get them to do what you want them to do. And behavior change is actually a huge area now that's gaining a lot of interest. And it's triggered by this whole interest in behavioral economics, which really reminds us that human nature needs to be understood more holistically, that there are other factors to take into play. There are other contextual factors that actually shape people's behavior that go beyond what their motivations might be. And a classic example of this is, a much quoted example is the research that is being done on organ donations across countries. I don't know, how many of you have heard this research quoted, but basically the difference between countries where there's a very high rate of organ donation after death versus countries where there's very low rates. There's been a lot of investigation into what causes that difference. Are people's attitudes to organ donation? Are there altruistic motives? Is there a difference in all of that? And the real difference really is whether the choice of donating your organ is an opt-in one or an opt-out one. Meaning that in the countries where there is a very high rate of organ donation, people have to opt out and say, no, I don't want to donate my organs, and they will be excluded. In the other countries, people have to opt in. So when they have to opt in, the rates of organ donation are really low. When they have to opt out, it's really high. So what's going on here? Is it that, it doesn't seem to be to do with people's desire to donate their organs or their belief that this is the right thing to do. It is about maybe inertia, maybe social norming, maybe, so what is going on here where such a simple thing like ticking a box or unticking a box can actually make such a huge difference to such a serious and fundamental issue. And that is the subject of behavioral economics research. And what is it that, what are all of these contextual factors and what makes people behave the way they do, make the choices that they do, that goes beyond what they believe in or what they feel they're motivated by. So let me just spend some time talking about what behavioral economics is, because this term has become really buzzy. And just to get us all on the same page, because I'm sure some of you have encountered some of the research in this area, but just so that we are speaking from the same page. What I'm talking about here is a study of real-world decision-making in the area of economics and finance. So that's what behavioral economics refers to. Yeah? And that is contrasted with the theory of economic decision-making. So it's typically against the rational choices that people are supposedly making in theory. And the learning from behavioral economics usually is that people are irrational, that they behave led by emotion, led by intuition, and that rational decision making is not as widely prevalent as we would like to believe in the world of economic theory. So behavioral economics draws from a lot of research in cognitive psychology, in social psychology, neuroscience, behavioral biology, looking at how people's habits have evolved, how choices have evolved, and drawing from there the learning that people are often irrational in the way that they behave. At this stage you're probably saying, so what's that? Because we all, as qualitative researchers, have believed that people are irrational in any case. But this is a slightly different slant on it, which I'll come to. But the reason why it becomes such a big area of interest in the world of marketing and market research is because it puts the spotlight on a lot of interesting research in social psychology, in neuroscience, in cognitive psychology. Research that has actually been around for several years. This is not new research. But because behavioral economics has been packaged as behavioral economics, a lot of these books have become really popular, and some of the findings seem very dramatic, and particularly because they've been in the world of finance, which draws a lot of attention anyway. This research has become really interesting. And so the learning for us is actually from cognitive psychology and social psychology and neuroscience, and not so much the behavioral economics umbrella. Yeah? And so what I'll talk about now are some of those learnings and how they apply to the work that we do. Some of these are familiar, some of these seem intuitive enough, and some of these might actually put a new perspective on the way we do things. So let's start by thinking differently about thinking, about decision making. And one of the central arguments of all of this body of work is that the brain has an innate need to simplify. The brain is overloaded with information. It's overloaded with the challenge of decision making, and if we think consciously and think hard about everything that we had to do, every choice that we had to make, we would actually be crippled. We would be paralyzed. Because if you think about it, pretty much everything that we do on a daily basis involves a decision of some kind. And decisions are not just big decisions. Decisions are not just about, who should I marry and what job should I take and where should I study and that sort of thing. Decisions are which side of the bed should I get out of? Should I wake up now or shouldn't I? Should I brush my teeth or shouldn't I? Should I make myself a cup of tea or a cup of coffee? Which route should I drive to take to work? And that sort of thing. So everything that we are doing from the moment we wake up in the morning to going to bed at night involves a decision. Every action is a choice to do that or not to do that, or to do something else. Now we don't experience all of this as real decision making. We don't experience it as a real choice that we have to make. And that's because all of this happens on autopilot. Yeah, it happens automatically. The alarm goes off, we put it off, we get out of bed from the same side, we make ourselves a cup of tea or coffee or whatever we're used to. We drive to work using the same route we always do, and so on. We don't think about these things. Because if we did, we would be crippled. We can't afford to think about everything that we do. And so therefore, automatic, unthinking, intuitive decision making becomes the norm. Yeah, it is to simplify our lives. It is to make sure that we sort of stay on track and that we don't get completely sort of submerged with all of this decision making. Now, because this is happening, because a lot of what we're doing is happening on automatic, when we ask people for explanations of why they're doing what they're doing, it is likely that people don't have the answers. Yeah, the answers are not available to them in their conscious minds. Again, that's something that we understand as core researchers, that asking people directly for explanations doesn't really give us the right explanations. And that's not necessarily because people want to lie to us or because they're embarrassed or because they're defensive. It's actually because they don't have the explanation in their heads. A lot of what they did was automatic and unthinking. And so when you actually ask them for explanations, what they tend to provide you are confabulations, which are rationalizations that the brain creates to fill a gap. And these are not lies. These are things that people actually believe are happening. It's not a desire to deceive or to make up something consciously. It happens, it kicks in automatically. Now on your tables, you'll find this sheet of paper. One side of these dots seems convex if you look at it, and the other one seems concave. Yeah, one seems to be bulging out of the paper slightly, and the other seems to be turning into the paper. If you turn this around, it remains the same, meaning the sides seem to have flipped over. Yeah, when it was facing this way, the side is seeming convex. But when I turn it the other way, it seems like it's flipped over. Or rather, it seems to be the same side, which the actual panels have switched roles. And the reason this is happening is because of the pattern of light and shade. These are actually flat dots. We know they're flat dots, they're seeming convex or concave. And the reason why the slipping over is working the way it is because the pattern of light and shade has changed. And in the dots that are seeming convex to us, the light is falling from above. And when you experience the surface as convex, then you experience it as the light falling from above and lighting up the top. So when the top of the circle is light and the bottom of the circle is dark, you experience it as a convex shape. Yeah, it's an optical illusion. Now what's happening here is the brain is filling a gap. That's what the brain does. That's how optical illusions are created. The brain has a bit of information. It expects to see things looking in a certain way, and whether or not that's true, these dots are neither convex nor concave, the brain fills in the gap and creates that illusion. And even though you know that's not correct, and you flip the page over and you've seen for yourself that that's not correct, you can't avoid looking at it that way. You still see the convex and concave shapes. And that's an automatic tendency. So that's what I meant by the confabulations being automatic. That people are not lying to us or themselves. They are actually believing that this is what the situation is. And you see the same thing happening in a lot of optical illusions. So you see, the larger giant at the back, and actually they're the same size. This is a classic illusion of the longer line versus the shorter line, and you know that they're the same size. And the reason you see it that way is because you're conditioned to see things that are closer to you as shorter and things that are far away as taller. It takes you a while to see that these are actually human legs out there and a human hand out there, because you automatically actually experience this as a bird. And what's going on here is that it's your system 1, or your intuitive brain, actually acting to fill in the gaps and to sort of make these rapid judgments about what you're seeing. And these rapid judgments, these rapid intuitive judgments, it is what we're talking about today, which is the whole idea of thinking, but by unthinking, coming to decisions by not thinking too much about them. So terms that have been used quite a lot in behavioral economics are System 1 and System 2. Just to explain what System 1 and System 2 is, can I ask you to indulge me in a little experiment? I'll ask you to stand up.
Okay, I'll demonstrate with my partner, and you just follow. Find somebody. Okay, I'm going to say 1, and my partner says 2. Okay, so I'll say 1, 1, 2, and you do the same to them. Okay, just do that. 1, 2, 1, 1.
Now we have 1. Now you started saying 1. I started.
Okay. Okay, you can stop now.
Yeah.
Okay, so that
That's
was just
basically
easy enough. 1 and 2, you're either 1 or 2, and it happens naturally, automatically. Yeah.
Then you switch over.
Yeah. Okay. Then, I say 1. You say 2. I say 3. She says 1. I say 2. She says 3. I say 1. Okay. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. We're going the same way, but the number doesn't remain the same. Yeah? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 3. 1. Yeah? Slightly harder. Okay. Another twist on this now. I go 1, she goes 2.
And instead of 3, I stop.
Oh God.
And then she goes 1, I go 2. Instead of 3, she tries. Yeah?
So 3.
1,
1,
2,
2,
2. 1.
1,
3.
2, 1,
Thank you for indulging me today. What I was trying to demonstrate was the ease of System 1. The first time, it was easy. You said 1, you were 1, or you were 2, and it just continued. So after some time, you forget what you feel. You don't have to think. I just keep going 1, 1, 1, 1, unthinkingly. And then the minute you add a twist and you have to think a little bit, it's slightly harder. And with the clap included, and in another version, you could actually add a jump or something. So the more you add, complications to it, you have to think, you have to sort of focus, you make mistakes, you slow down a bit. It doesn't come as naturally and as fluidly. Okay, so the first example was one of System 1 thinking, which is the automatic thing, where you experience a sense of flow. It's intuitive, it's quick, it's, you don't have to think much about it, it comes naturally to you. System 2 is when you have to focus, when you have to concentrate, when you really have to think rationally about what you're doing. It's not that we're not capable of rational thought, of the System 2 sort of thought. It's just that most of the time, System 1 is in charge. Yeah, so there are different numbers quoted with it, 90% or 95 or 99, I don't know, but it's really high up there. Yeah, that it's the majority of the time, people are in System 1 mode. They can get into System 2 when they have to solve a math problem. Of course, they are in System 2. When we're writing research papers, we are in System 2. We are capable of weighing up arguments, of sort of thinking analytically, when we're giving an exam, all of those things involve system 2 thinking. So we're capable of that. But that requires effort. It takes energy. And it can't be in system 2 all the time for everything that we do. And remember that everything involves some sort of decision making. Yeah. So system 1, therefore, this is an intuitive brain. It does require a lot of thinking. It's just that the thinking is not happening consciously. It's happening somewhere at the back of our heads. It's like a computer processor going on. And so what we experience is intuition, but there's a whole lot of decision making and complex reasoning that's going on at the back, which is not available to us. And so we experience it as snap judgments, as gut feelings, and all of this is actually a result of learning from experience as well. So all of our experiences, emotionally charged experiences, point us in a certain direction, help us fall into certain habitual patterns of behavior, and act in a certain way. Just an example of selective attention and how we can actually tune out of system 2 and just go into a system 1 thing. And system 1 actually often can lead us astray because we're making quick decisions, just like the optical illusions. We see something that's not there. Because we're acting, in this quick intuitive manner, we can go astray. And this is an example of selective attention and how people can actually go wrong and also rationalize. So this is a guy who's asking people to choose between a pair of photographs. He's showing his respondents a pair of photographs, asking them which ones they prefer and sort of explain why they prefer that one. So just take a look.
Petter Johansson is forcing people to make decisions. It's a simple enough task for most people, and in fact, it isn't the real point of the experiment. Petter Johansson and Lars Hall have devised an experiment which calls into question many of our assumptions about how we make most of our everyday decisions. Why did you choose this one?
Because of a very interesting personality.
This is all quite boring until you look at the experiment from a different perspective.
We added a twist, a card trick, so that sometimes they choose one place but end up with the other one.
Watch carefully. The volunteer chooses the card on the left, but Petter swaps the card and presents the photo that was seen on the right and was actually rejected.
I mean, it's two parts that's interesting here. First, the fact that they don't notice when you switch the pictures. It's interesting in itself, and it's quite surprising. And the second part is, of course, the verbal reports they give, that they actually motivate choices they didn't make.
80% of the people we tested had absolutely no idea that a switch had been made.
Again, this one just struck me. Interesting shot. Since I'm a photographer, I like the way it's lit and looks.
It's a puzzling phenomenon. Lars and Petter think that it can only be understood by looking at our fundamental relationship with our surroundings. It might also be that we simply can't countenance our decisions being wrong. Once we've made up our minds, there's far too much invested to backpedal. We simply post-rationalize and pretend that it was a great choice all along.
From here.
From here.
That's a classic example of rationalization, where somebody's explaining why they liked a photograph that they didn't actually select. So forget the fact that they didn't notice that the photos had been switched. They're actually providing an explanation for something that they didn't really do. And there are a whole lot of experiments like this, a huge body of evidence on how people actually make up explanations without knowing they're doing that. So there's one that I love, is an example which is quoted to me of somebody who was hypnotized in an audience, in a large audience, people who were watching him, and he was told that once I snap my fingers and you come out of your trance, you will take off your shirt, you will fold it quietly and keep it in a corner quietly. And that's what he does. He comes out of his trance, he takes the shirt, goes quietly to a corner, and keeps it there, folds it and keeps it there. He's asked for an explanation, why did you do that? And he said, well, actually it was getting quite hot in the room. So he didn't really know why he'd done that, but he automatically provided an explanation. And without really knowing that he's doing that. He believed that the room was getting warm, and that's why he'd taken his shirt off. And these are simple experiments to demonstrate rationalization, but the fact is that it's real, it happens. And when we ask people for explanations, we need to be aware of the answers we're getting. It's something that we do know as qual researchers, but we often forget. So what does this mean in terms of decision making? Does it mean that these quick intuitive decisions are always wrong? Well, actually, the most fascinating part of this behavioral economics research is that these decisions are not wrong. Very often, our fast and frugal brain, our system 1, actually gets us to better choices than thinking consciously would. And that's because our system 1 brain is drawing from that huge body of knowledge that's buried in the unconscious. That is actually leading us to the right decision. There is that huge body of knowledge. We are not conscious about it. We don't know it. So we can't sort of weigh up pros and cons, and we don't act like we are being analytical and rational. We act on intuition, but that intuition is guided by a whole lot of knowledge. So this body of research which shows that fast decision making is actually very often more effective than slow, rational, careful, deliberate decision making is the most fascinating bit of all. So yes, we make mistakes. Yes, we go astray from time to time, but most of the time, for the world around us, for the life that we have to live, our decisions are actually fairly sound. So just an example that demonstrates this. How do fielders catch a ball? How do they know how far they have to run? The rational explanation is that they need to calculate the trajectory of the ball. You have to, because you have to be a mathematician if you have to be a good fielder, you have to be a physicist. Obviously, because how can you otherwise predict where the ball is going to land? But that's not the case. And what actually happens is that people are sort of, looking, they fix their eye on the ball, they have an angle at which they're looking at it, and they keep the angle constant. So if the angle looks like it's going to fall, then I run forward. If it looks like it's going to go higher, I run back, so that the angle remains the same. So I'm using a substitute for calculating the trajectory. I haven't thought it through. It's come to me instinctively, and I figured that this is a good surrogate and it'll get me to the same place. Actually, when fielders are asked to sit by the side of the field and predict where the ball is going to land, they can't. Yes. So it means that they have to be in the field and they have to have their eye on the ball, and that's how they will figure it out. So there are no complex calculations happening here. We're not calculating the trajectories. Now what's going on here is that people are using a heuristic. They're using a mental shortcut, which is a substitute for the real thing. So heuristics are mental shortcuts or rules of thumb that the brain creates to make faster decisions. They're not the same, they don't get you to the same place in terms of what is actually going on. So there's no calculation of the trajectory that's happening here. What I've done is I found a surrogate for it. So it's like saying that instead of, when I'm trying to decide which brand of car to buy, instead of looking at all the models and weighing up the pros and cons of each and looking at the specs and getting feedback, I use a surrogate like buy a popular brand, buy something that everybody does. So I'm using a surrogate and saying that will get me to a good place, because if so many people are buying it, it must be a good one. I don't have to make the choice for myself. And that's an automatic reaction that the brain has, which is creating heuristics that help us navigate life faster, more efficiently, and very often with better results than we would if we actually weighed up pros and cons and tried to calculate trajectories, which would actually require a lot of mental effort and time. So these kinds of heuristics are used for everyday trivial decisions as well as fairly serious ones. In fact, one of the classic examples of the use of heuristic is in the area of financial decision making. It is also in the area of medical decisions. So the fact that doctors arrive at 3 or 4 very clear signals that that help them decide whether a patient should be wheeled into the ICU or into the general ward. So they come